Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 239, Jianting. Particular attention was paid to the seating arrangements during the Hanqi festival. When Han Cheng took his seat, he saw Qi Zuyan to his left. He held up his sleeves and asked, "When is Commander-in-Chief Qi going to return to Qidong?" The reign of Qingming comes and goes so abruptly that it makes traveling on the bridle path difficult. The eunuch next to Qi Zuyan was in the midst of pouring wine. The wine vessels of the palace were all classy and of top quality, and they were a pretty sight to behold when filled with amber-colored wine. Qi Zuyan rotated the wine cup and answered as she scrutinized it, "The Bianjun commandery has been pressing for our return. I ought to have left a long time ago, but the rain in Chu capital keeps falling. I'm in a spot, too. Ain't that the truth?" Han Cheng sneered inwardly to himself. The matter was not over yet, so how would the Grand Secretariat dare allow Qi Zuyan to leave? The lives of those like Kong Qiu and their family all hinged on the Qidong garrison troops, and they were hoping that they could remove him from the equation while Qi Zuyan was still in Chu capital. Han Cheng said to Qi Zuyan from a distance, "Head out along Mount Fen military drills grounds. There's a bridle path to the south leading directly to He province. It's a newly constructed path that runs along the Kaling River. Discuss it with the Ministry of War later, Commander-in-Chief Qi. It's much faster to go from here. The war with the Qingxi tribe may be over, but there are still the other tribes. The Qidong 5 commandery's garrison troops are all waiting for Commander-in-Chief Qi's deployment order. Even I get anxious to hear about it." Although Han Cheng was a narrow-minded person, he was well informed. No doubt he had some true worth to be able to sit at the same table with Sen Yu and the others. In addition, he had been to many places for field work, and he was familiar with all the routes, so in this aspect, Qi Zuyan would not be able to hide it from him. "I'll wait for an opportunity, I guess." Qi Zuyan set the wine cup down. "It's all hard to say at this point." As they conversed, they saw young Master Fei Shi arrived, too. Fei Shi and Pan Lin were bosom friends. He had taken ill in the past few days after getting news of Pan Lin's death and no longer went out to have fun. It was not easy to catch sight of him nowadays. "Did young Master Fei went over to join the 8 great training divisions?" Qi Zuyan asked. Pan Chenzi's death shook him up, and he suddenly bucked up and wanted to seek a job. Han Cheng drank some wine. "There are no vacancies in the imperial court, and only the 8 great training divisions can take him in, so I had him transferred to the Chunquan battalion." The Chunquan battalion was equipped with firearms. Qi Zuyan thought of those firearms from King Yi of Fan province and remembered the scorpion in Chu capital. She heaved a long sigh, finally willing to look Han Cheng in the eyes. "Commander Han." Han Cheng hurriedly leaned forward, making a show of being all ears. Qi Zuyan's expression was grave as she said, "I'm hungry." Han Cheng promptly burst out laughing. "Commander-in-Chief Qi have not been in Chu capital for the past years and did not know that you had to fill your stomach first before coming to the banquet." He lowered his voice. "It's all cold food at the Hanqi festival banquet. There is more of a spread served during the Mid-Autumn festival, with fine wine and crabs. What a beautiful sight it is to be sitting in the imperial garden admiring the moon and flowers." Both of them chatted rather merrily until the eunuch outside the hall announced the Empress Dowager's arrival in a resounding, crystal-clear voice. Only then did they rise to their feet and retreated behind the small tables, where they kneeled and prostrate themselves to pay their respects in unison with Kong Qiu. The Empress Dowager was wearing a 12 dragons and phoenixes crown inlaid with gold and precious gems, as well as earrings adorned with eastern pearls. All poised and stately dressed, she showed no hints of the weariness that came with suffering a setback. She merely said, "You may rise," after she took her seat in a dignified manner and uttered nothing more. The officials bowed once again, and it was only when they paid their obeisances that the heir apparent, Li Jianting, strode into the hall. Qi Zuyan's capacity for wine was average. The few toasts she made to Han Cheng while engaged in small talk with the latter during the feast were all politely declined. Han Cheng did not bring his blade with him, so he was cautious. He kept his eyes constantly on the entrance of the hall, where he had set up his guards. Kong Qiu led the officials to toast the Empress Dowager and then to the heir apparent. The atmosphere of the feast was in full swing when Fu Man commanded the eunuchs to serve the dishes. The officials from the Hanlin Academy uttered one witty remark after another with the few jokes they told causing the officials at the feast to bowl over with laughter. Even the Empress Dowager's expression had softened and relaxed a little. Li Jianting rose at the appropriate moment and held up the wine cup to toast the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager looked at her affectionately and said, "My good child does resemble Emperor Guangcheng so. I feel reassured to leave the empire in your hands in the future." Li Jianting was already at this age. What future was there to speak of? Li Jianting stood with a bow and drank up all the wine. A faint flush crept into her cheeks, making her look bashful. Playing the role of a filial child to the Empress Dowager's compassionate mother, she said, "This imperial grandchild is dense and has limited knowledge of political affairs. I do not know when I will see the light, so I will still need imperial grandmother to supervise and exhort me daily." Li Jianting had yet to be involved in government and political affairs. Before the case of the Dan city's field taxes, all she was listening to in Mingli Hall were reports that the Grand Secretariat submitted as mere formalities. There were indeed many political issues in which her understanding was scant. But Kong Qiu and the others taught her out of selfish motives, analyzing and explaining them to her during lessons, so these words of hers were also merely polite banalities. The Empress Dowager drank the wine with Li Jianting. Before the heir apparent ascended to the throne, all government administration affairs should be decided by the Grand Secretariat led by Kong Qiu, the minister assisting the ruler in governance. The authority of the Empress Dowager to act in place of the Son of Heaven was originally a symbolic right to annotate, endorse, and make a decision on a memorial. Still, the Empress Dowager, in relying on the noble clans and the capital command troops to influence court administration, had long deviated from the supervisory role Li Jianting spoke of. Li Jianting bowed and retreated. Once her wine cup was refilled, she toasted Kong Qiu, and teacher and pupil both mutually bowed to each other. She did the same in successive order down the ranks until she finally came before Han Cheng. Reed pipes music was being played in the hall at this time. The hanging drapes at the entrance were lowered, shrouding the palace door under the shadows. Han Cheng returned the bow. When he finished his wine, he heard Li Jianting say, "Commander Han is the former emperor's right-hand man who also serves as the viceroy of the capital command troops. I have the highest esteem for your meticulous work and valuable service." As she spoke, Fu Man, who was behind her, refilled the wine cup again. On seeing that, Han Cheng hurriedly said, "Your Highness thinks too highly of this old subject. I'm not deserving of such high praises." Li Jianting smiled. Traces of exhaustion from her illness was still visible in her face, and this one smile unexpectedly turned out to be rather gentle and mild as she jokingly said, "Teacher is the Grand Secretary of the Grand Secretariat, and Commander Han is a veteran of the Jinyue Way, so how can I favor one over the other?" Hearing Li Jianting putting him on par with Kong Qiu and piling on words that seemed to be playing up to him, Han Cheng assumed that the heir apparent was frightened by what happened the last time and so wanted to ingratiate herself with both sides to play peacemaker. Han Cheng held up the wine cup with both hands and faced Li Jianting. "This subject is but a mere soldier. How could I dare to compare myself to the Grand Secretary? Your Highness, here's a toast to you." Li Jianting looked at Han Cheng as she covered her mouth with her sleeve and drank up the wine in the cup. Fu Man refilled it to the brim immediately right after. The wine vessel she had was different from a wine cup, with a deep base and a large capacity. Just 2 rounds later, Han Cheng had already broken out in a sweat and had no wish to drink any further. "Your Highness." Han Cheng's capacity for wine was passable, but when he got a little tipsy and remembered it was all his men outside this hall, He could not help but let down his guard some as he said to Li Jianting, "Your Highness is still young. With the administration of governmental affairs going by the Grand Secretariat's rulings, you inevitably neglect to inquire about military affairs. The Grand Secretariat wants to cut the military expenses of the Capital Command troops this year. That won't do, Your Highness. Our Capital Command troops have the important responsibility of both patrols and defenses. We don't even have a decent military drill ground now, and yet our military expense is still going to be cut." This. Upon hearing this, Kong Qiu, who was standing behind Li Jianting at the side, frowned. He interjected to cut off Han Cheng. "There should be no political talks during the banquets. Why are you complaining about all these to Her Highness at this time?" Han Cheng drank his wine and grasped the wine vessel in his palm. Smiling hypocritically at Kong Qiu, he said, "Baran, you people drew up the memorial wanting me to give in, so I can only voice my difficulties when I meet Her Highness in person. The Chief Surveillance Bureau has been pushing the Marquis of Helion hard these days. He is an honest person, but Sen Sunyi berated him until he has lost all face." "Oh, forget it, Your Highness. Just treat it as mere chatter." Sen Yu stood up from his own small table and paid his obeisances to both the Empress Dowager and Li Jianting before saying to Han Cheng, "The Chief Surveillance Bureau is in charge of impeachments and is commonly known as the Imperial Censor. Every matter it brings forth is a malady of the Imperial Court. The Chuan city lies close to the Northeast Provision's bridle path and links up to the waterways of the Dis city. If there are issues with taxation, then we, as Imperial Censors, have to bring it up. A joint trial has yet to be set up for the Chuan City case, and the Grand Secretariat has not really gone into the Marquis of Helion's crimes in detail. So how can you say I am the one pushing him into a corner? Seems to me like he's the one pushing the common folks of Chuan City into a corner." The music in the hall gradually came to a stop. All the present court officials fell silent. Han Cheng felt humiliated. He could not stand to see officials from humble backgrounds acting all so morally upright. Never mind when it happened in the past before he made it to the top. Now that he held Chu Capital's life in his hand, Sen Yu still dared to contradict him in public and make his blood boil. Forcing himself to hold back, Han Cheng said with a smile, "Sun Yi, you and I are old acquaintances. I understand you. Since the case of Chuan City has yet to set up in a joint trial, that means the document has yet to be endorsed. Every matter presented still needs to be verified. You can't draw conclusions this arbitrarily. The Marquis of Helion had no troops and power, and even his accounts had been disclosed to the Ministry of Revenue. He was now so restless with anxiety that he was like an ant on a hot pan. Even if he was resentful deep down, he only dared to speak of it in secret. Seeing as they were about to start a dispute now, he lost his appetite. Setting down his chopsticks, he stood up to persuade them tactfully, "Let's not talk about political affairs during the banquet." "No political talk." Han Cheng handed the empty wine vessel to the eunuch and bowed once more to Li Jianting. "I have marred your highness's enjoyment." Li Jianting also handed her empty wine vessel to Fu Man. "Why take it to heart, Commander Han?" However, Han Cheng looked up in doubt. A gust of wind blew in from the palace door, and the hanging drape fluttered slowly. Li Jianting raised a hand to hold up the hair at her temple, which seemed to have gotten mussed up. Her fingertips came into contact with the golden hairpin, and she said to Han Cheng with words clear and distinct, "A toast I may share with you, my blade drawn though, yields no mercy." The hanging drapes fell to the ground, and the door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. Han Cheng's eyes widened. He instantly retreated, and in his panic, knocked over the small table. The wine vessels and utensils fell and shattered to pieces in a split second. He called out, "Your Highness." Without getting up, Qi Zuyan slammed a fist onto the small table, jolting up the porcelain plates, bowls, and chopsticks. She grabbed a golden chopstick and thrust it diagonally towards the side of Han Cheng's neck. Han Cheng waved his sleeve to block the blow. A thud rang out from the impact of the collision. Turned out he was wearing soft armor and arm guards under his official robe. Han Cheng picked up the small table by a leg and smashed it right towards Li Jianting. He flew into a rage. "Lass of a whorehouse! How dare you try to kill me?" Fu Man looked at Han Cheng throw his weight around and heard the resounding clatter of footsteps from outside the hall. Feeling timid, he took a few steps back with the tray in hand. Beside him, Kong Qiu had already lunged over to shield Li Jianting and ended up getting slammed in the forehead by the small table. He pushed Li Jianting back with all his might, paying no heed to the trickling blood. In that startling turn of events, he shouted, "Don't listen to his nonsense. If we don't eradicate this traitor, there will be no peace in the nation. Kill him. Quick!" A thunderous crash rang out from the door as the guards outside came slamming into the door when they heard the shouts. Feng Quan led a few junior eunuchs to press down on the door bolt and hold the door shut. Every single one of the officials in the hall was terrified. The Marquis of Helion, unable to stand steady on his feet, repeatedly retreated and muttered, "What is this?" Li Jianting lost her balance while retreating and fell to the ground, her heart pounding. Clutching the golden hairpin, she watched Feng Quan rock from the slamming at the door and barked sharply, "Block the door." Han Cheng arranged for armored soldiers to surround the palace. His wild ambition is on display for all to see. "If we don't kill him tonight, every one of you here and I will die." In the panic and confusion, Sen Yu was not paying attention to where he was stepping and tripped over a wine vessel. Shueziaozuo caught hold of him. He waved his arms towards the inside of the hall and said in an urgent tone, "As long as Han Cheng dies, the rebel forces will be without a leader. Commander-in-Chief Chi's reinforcements are right behind. Gentlemen, fear not." Having said that, he led by example and pounced at the door, working as one with the eunuchs to push against the door. Han Cheng traded blows with Qi Ziyin several times, getting the better of her with his well-trained martial arts skills. Moreover, he was wearing armor. He pressed Qi Ziyin hard, causing her to flip over and fall to the ground. The wazoo accessory in her hair promptly broke and scattered. Not daring to tarry, she swiftly rolled over to leave her original spot. No sooner said than done, Han Cheng stomped on the spot where she had just been lying on earlier. "Qi Ziyin." Han Cheng spat hard. "I've been putting up with you. You really think too highly of yourself. If you want to triumph over me, then get your old man here." Qi Ziyin did not bring Ziju with her. She usually stormed the enemies on the battlefields, so she was at a disadvantage when encountering those proficient in martial arts like Han Cheng. She led Han Cheng back a few steps and was already at Hua Xianji's table. Just as she was about to be forced back towards the Empress Dowager, she suddenly picked up Hua Xianji's unfinished cup of wine and tilted her head back to down it all. Then she smashed the porcelain cup, bent her index and middle fingers to pinch a broken porcelain piece between them, and wiped her mouth. "Don't you know?" Qi Ziyin told it like it was. "My old man had a stroke." Han Cheng threw a fist right at Qi Ziyin. She turned to the side to dodge the blow and raised a hand that did not have a porcelain fragment to grab Han Cheng's arm and twisted it back hard. Han Cheng did not move a muscle. Qi Ziyin, though thwarted, did not let go but kicked out at Han Cheng in the flank. Han Cheng knew she usually wielded an executioner blade, but he never expected her to have such strength to seize and take down a person when she was just a mere woman. He could not break free at all and took the kick. His murderous nature kicked in, and he let loose a bellow. Thuds rang out repeatedly as he used his elbow to jolt Qi Ziyin off his hand. Both of them engaged in a savage fight, stomping the debris under their feet into smithereens as they advanced and retreated. Meanwhile, the imperial court officials blocking the door were all civil officials who relied solely on their courage to engage in a war of strength with the guards at the other end of the door. That gap in the door grew bigger and bigger. Feng Quan could already see the ferocious-looking faces of the guards outside. He suddenly spat a mouthful of saliva at the guards and cursed in a sharp voice, "Despicable bastards wanting to live it up while serving a son of a bitch. Keep fucking dreaming. Push any further, and I'll flay you." He was delicate and refined by appearance. After following the heir apparent into the palace, he seemed to have a change of temperament. He did not dare to be reckless and unruly, and no matter who he saw, he was usually all meek and submissive. But he threw all caution to the wind and went all out today, picking up all the tart and scathing words to swear. The officials, too, cursed as well, but they were all men of letters, and even if they had to rack their brains, they had to curse with rhythmic flow, aesthetic sense, and literary grace. And now, hearing Feng Quan rattling off a string of expletives like a machine gun, their morale were greatly boosted. Han Chang, who was inside, had no wish to engage further. He twisted Qi Ziyun's incoming fist to a stop and made to remove Qi Ziyun's right arm. Going along with the force, Qi Ziyun somersaulted and took a blow to the side of her cheek when she landed. The impact from this strike caused her to turn over and crash into a small table at the side. As she propped herself up with her arms, she licked blood that made her toothache. This old dog was truly an expert who wormed his way into Ji Lei's command, hiding his weaknesses by not making a move and then getting the upper hand when faced up against Qi Ziyin. How would it have been so easy for him had she been Xiao Qiye with that kind of fearsome arm strength and who was versed in the Ji clan boxing fist? Han Chang pressed in, wanting to kick Qi Ziyin away by the waist. Qi Ziyin blocked the blow with both arms and grabbed hold of his leg. She abruptly lifted it up high, turning him over to the ground. Kong Qiu charged out holding a wine jar above his head. Too late to smash it on him, he tossed it aside and latched onto Han Chang's arm in a death grip. For a moment, Han Chang could not break free with Kong Qiu holding down his left arm. He wanted to turn over and get up, but Xue Xiaozuo kicked over a small table and kneeled at the side, holding down two legs of the table to pin down Han Chang's right arm. With the pressure on both arms, Han Chang's expression changed. He hissed aloud, "You despicable lot." He jerked himself hard, but Qi Ziyin leaped to her feet and kicked herself off the ground in a pounce, slicing the broken porcelain shard between her knuckles towards Han Chang's neck. Han Chang did all he could to lift his body and took the blow with the armor before his chest. The shard scraped past his neck, drawing out a trail of blood. He was just about to open his mouth when another person lunged at him and wrapped his arms around half of his body. Gasping heavily for breath, Fu Man said, "Commander-in-Chief Qi, do it." On seeing that it was him, Han Chang said in a frosty voice with both shock and fury, "A castrated traitor indeed has no righteousness to speak of. I should have killed you a long time ago." At those words, he really looked as if he was about to stand up, but before he could do so, Qi Ziyin slammed a fist so hard into him that he was knocked back. The force of the blow caused Han Chang's nose to bleed. He was so full of resentment and hatred that he raised his voice and hollered, "You people are the real traitors by supporting Li Jianting to ascend to the throne. She's merely a whore." A squishy plop followed next, and Han Chang felt an acute stab of pain in his left eye. The pain was so excruciating that he howled with his head tilted back. Amidst the blur of blood, he saw the golden butterfly hanging from the golden hairpin swinging by his cheek. Han Chang's voice trembled from the pain. He was already a spent force, like an arrow at the end of its flight. "You! How dare you!" Li Jianting pulled out the golden hairpin with a shaking hand. Blood splattered over her, sullying her regal robe. When she saw that Han Chang was still not dead, she gritted her teeth and closed her eyes to haphazardly stab Han Chang in the face and neck. Han Chang continued, "Whore! You!" His right eye was injured when Meng pecked it during the downpour in Chu capital, and now his left eye was stabbed blind by Li Jianting. He did not look human now, with his facial features a bloody pulp and mouth opening and closing. To think, I meet my maker. Fu Man was still pinned down under Han Cheng's back. The latter's blood trickled all over his face, scaring him so much that he shrieked. With his heart still palpitating, Kong Qi released his hand and confirmed that Han Cheng was dead. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief and fell onto his butt on the ground. Han Cheng toppled to the ground, his neck skewed to the side, no longer moving. Xue Zaiozhuo was gasping for breath, too. He stared at Li Jianting with disbelief in his eyes. Li Jianting's blood-stained golden hairpin fell to the ground, making a clear, crisp sound. Both of her hands were washed in blood. Looking as if the sight of Han Cheng frightened her, she took half a step back, holding back the ragged gasps in her throat. Livestock. Li Jianting's fingers were shaking badly as she self-mockingly wiped her face under the dead silence. It was as if she was wiping her tears, but all that was left behind were the dark red streaks from her fingers. I'm not a livestock. Li Jianting met Xue Zaiozhuo's gaze and slowly clenched her fists. Her eyes reddened as she revealed a complicated expression in this sudden change, looking as if she was both crying and laughing. I'm not, Li Jianting squeezed out the words through clenched teeth. She abruptly turned around, facing the doors to the hall, and raised her right hand, as if clenching the power that was once beyond her reach as she enunciated, word for word, here stands the heir apparent. Who, still wants to be a treacherous traitor? The Empress Dowager held onto the handles of her seat for support. Although she was still sitting high up in the dais, she seemed to have returned to the very first day she entered the palace. That day, she stood before the towering palace, looking up at Emperor Guangcheng in the prime of his life. Emperor Guangcheng also once stood at the pinnacle of supremacy in the palace with his right hand raised as he said to her, "Here stands the Son of Heaven." The Li clan's emperor. End chapter. Note: 1 Qingming Festival, or Tomb Sweeping Day, is a festival for paying respects to the dead. 2 Hanqi Festival, literally translated Cold Food Festival, the day before the Qingming Festival, when people eat only cold food. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 240, All of a Sudden. The heart-stopping Hanqi Festival drew to a close. Xue Zaiozhuo took away Han Cheng's authority token. Having lost their commander and fearing the majestic, regal presence of legitimate royalty, the guards did not dare to charge forth again rashly and retreated under the impact of Li Jianting's declaration of "Here stands the heir apparent." The 8 great training divisions commanding generals awaiting their orders outside the palace were all keeping watch in the Han residence, where wine was flowing freely as they mingled. They had not received any news thus far. Viceroy Han isn't back yet. Could he have been retained by that Kong Baran? A lad of the Han clan reclining on the couch sucked hard on his pipe and snorted upon hearing it. Kong Baran may not get along with Viceroy Han, but we have troops in our hands, a 20,000 strong capital command troops that can surround the palace at the slightest movement. Who would dare to act recklessly? They are all scholars who are too weak to even truss a chicken. Are they really going to pin their hopes on Qi Zuyin? There's no escape for her either. The 13th son of the Hua family listened to the opera singing on the stage and hummed along as he bobbed his head and rhythmically tapped his folding fan on his palm. Viceroy Han is a great hero. How are those few people who are all show and no substance in the palace be his match? What are you worrying needlessly for? This 13th son of the Hua family was an illegitimate son born by a concubine from this city. He poked his nose into the imperial army affairs a while back and was taught a lesson by Xiao Qiye. He feared Xiao Qiye the tyrant, so he fled back home and passed the days by fooling around and idling his time away in this city. It was only until Xiao Qiye left Chu capital that he dared to step foot in the capital again. Besides, this 13th son of the Hua family raised his folding fan upright to point up and smugly said, "Who would dare to lay a finger on Viceroy Han with my paternal aunt there?" The Han clan lad exhaled smoke, traded glances with him, and laughed. They were all bungling oafs who were good for nothing, so there was no disdain to speak of between them. Fei Shi will be coming in a few days. The Han clan lad motioned the maidservant to stuff the tobacco into his pipe. The few of us should organize a feast for him to welcome him. He's been feeling depressed over Pan Chenzi's death. The 13th son of the Hua family put away his folding fan and turned aside to say, "If you ask me, it's just as well that Pan Chenzi died. If he didn't die, what is he going to do in exile to Huai province? He'll have to die in our hands sooner or later, and that will ruin our friendship with Fei Shi. That could get tricky." Pan Lin handed over the 8 cities accounts book. This had to be counted. Not once had it ever crossed their minds that Han Cheng would never return from this trip. Ever since the reign of Yanji, the 8 great training divisions had been arrogantly lording it over Chu capital. It was only during the reign of Xian that the imperial army led by Xiao Qiye had ever threatened their capital command troops status, but later, the imperial army left and they became the capital command troops of Chu capital again. They ran brazenly rampant, no longer playing it cautious. The few of them drank wine and made merry as the day got later and later as they chatted. The 13th son of the Hua family got tipsy. He leaned back against the chair and propped up his legs, then shouted for the opera singer to give him a leg massage. In his drunken state, he pinched her face and teased, "Young lady, how old are you? You look unfamiliar." The Han clan lad behind hurriedly craned his neck and bragged, "You don't know who she is. Shi Hongxian trained her. She's a famous figure in Chu capital. You won't find her anywhere else once you step out of this door." They teased that opera singer, deliberately using obscene words on her. Outside, the watchman's clapper struck a few times, and the maidservants in the residence went under the eaves to light up the palace lamps. Chu capital was silent. Qi Wei led the garrison troops to kill the deputy general guarding the city and snuck into Chu capital. He kept an eye on the time, and when it was past the 3rd quarter in the hour of Zhou, he raised his hand and signaled for his subordinates to surround the Han residence. The 13th son of the Hua family was feeling sleepy when he suddenly felt the urge to pee. He rose to go to the latrine, and when he passed through the walkway, he saw a faint light in front. He fixed his eyes on it. Fire. The 13th son of the Hua family was so scared that he lost the urge to pee. Lifting his pants, he ran backward and chased after the maidservants to ask, "It's burning. Why isn't anyone putting out the fire? Hurry. Get the capital command troops waiting in the other courtyard to fetch water to put out the fire." This residence was owned by Han Cheng. If he returned tomorrow morning only to see his house burned down, they would all have to bear the consequences. While the 13th son of the Hua family was looking around, the lad from the Han clan and the others came out upon hearing the noise and stood under the eaves to look out into the distance, only to see that the fire was intensifying. "What's going on?" The lad from the Han clan tensed up as well. "Why hasn't the fire been put out yet?" The guard on duty by the courtyard came to the door and answered, "This fire is extremely strange. It's coming in intermittent waves. Someone must have deliberately set it off. 6th Master, please come to the door to take a look. The capital command troops shall heed your command." The lad from the Han clan did not dare to be lazy when it came to this matter, so he dragged the few people beside him and called the 13th son of the Hua family to come along. They hurried towards the entrance, but before they could reach the front, they heard someone ahead yell, "They are killing their way in." The color drained from the face of the 13th son of the Hua family. Killing their way in? Who? The surrounding servants were thrown into confusion. Someone answered, "We can't get a clear look. It's all pitch dark." They simply killed every one of the capital command troops on sight upon reaching the entrance. They are pushing their way in. The lad from the Han clan was so startled he dropped his pipe. He took a few steps forth, dragging his robe along, then shrank back and yelled, "Quick, pass on the deployment order and transfer all the capital command troops at the military drill grounds over as reinforcements." But he did not have Han Cheng's authority token, so there was no way he could mobilize the capital command troops at the military drill grounds. The sound of killing in the front courtyard pressed in towards them. The capital command troops at the entrance, which had tagged along, could not stop them. Seeing that the situation did not bode well, the 13th son of the Hua family paid no heed to the others and ran towards the back with the servants crowding together. The lad from the Han clan could not even brandish a blade, and on seeing that, followed suit and took to his heels, too. Qi Wei broke through the door and entered with a fire in hand to look for the men. He disregarded the chaos in the courtyard and slashed away when he came across men from the capital command troops. The 8 great training divisions had long resided in Chu capital, and they had never encountered such a difficult opponent other than the last time they had to wield their blades when they encircled Xiao Qi Ye. The few commanding generals cowered back and withdrew, and the soldiers under them followed them around in circles as the garrison troops hacked them back into a retreat. The garrison troops did not let the fire rage for long. The 8 great training divisions were scattered all over the place, and they had no channels in which to pass on messages to one another, so if the fire was too strong, it would no doubt arouse suspicions. By the time the fire in the Han residence was extinguished, a portion of the courtyard interior had already collapsed. Qi Wei did not let the 13th son of the Hua family and the others off and rounded up this bunch of good-for-nothing young masters. Only the lad from the Han clan escaped by worming his way out of a dog hole. The next day, when a glimmer of light materialized on the horizon, the court officials escorted Li Jianting over to Mingli Hall. A series of imperial edicts were then issued, first to depose the Han clan's noble title, then to denounce Han Cheng for his crimes. There was also the move to confiscate the Han clan's properties and execute the entire Han clan on the grounds of collusion with the intent to rebel against the state. The many descendants of illegitimate birth in the Han clan's hometown of the Wu city were a diverse bunch, and upon hearing the news, they all took their valuables and fled whichever way. In just a few short days, the storm in Chu capital took a sudden turn. The common people on the streets did not even have time to react when a new master stepped onto the throne in that imperial palace. The Empress Dowager took to her bed in illness, and despite her busy schedule, Li Jianting still had to revere and attend to the Empress Dowager as her paternal grandmother, the Grand Empress Dowager. Every day, she would personally sample her medicine and keep watch by her bedside to attend to her. Sen Yu submitted a memorial to exalt the heir apparent's virtuousness and filial piety, and the imperial court and the people promptly broke out in praise. The Empress Dowager was old and frail, and the calls for the heir apparent's ascension to the throne gradually grew louder by the day. ******. The storm in Chu capital has subsided. Yao Wenyu sprinkled fish food to the brocade carps in the pond. Commander-in-Chief Qi should have returned to the Bianjun commandery by now. Cian has already returned to the war zone. By the time Commander-in-Chief Qi returns, it would be time for him to head over to the Bianjun commandery, too. Shenzhequan turned aside to face the sunlight and scrutinized the jade pendant in his palm. Han Cheng died too easily. This news had only just arrived. Yao Wenyu's fingers still had residual fish food remaining between them. The Empress Dowager, unable to accept that the noble clans have brought about their own downfall, is too powerless to salvage this hopeless situation. After the heir apparent ascends to the throne, she will definitely confer a noble title upon Commander-in-Chief Qi to prepare for the rainy days. Carrying the jade pendant in hand, Shenzhequan smiled. Yao Wenyu continued, "Your lordship wants Ji Qingqing to return to Chu capital and yet would not permit him to make a move. Presumably, you intend to keep him for a greater purpose. There's no need for hurry about Ji Qingqing. This move will not be effective until the heir apparent ascends to the throne." Shenzhequan looked at Yao Wenyu. "I'm looking forward to it." The branches of the tender willow by the side of the pond swayed as Hanu pounced out after a butterfly and rolled beside Yao Wenyu's legs, covered in dust all over. Yao Wenyu lowered his hand to stroke it. "Your lordship is far-sighted. Shui Yanqing wanted a sovereign, and heaven really gave one to him." Shenzhequan smiled. "But how would a strong, Forceful sovereigns subject themselves to the mercy of others. Fear, Yao Wenyu answered softly. That's right. Shenzequan watched as the brocade carps that had swarmed over scattered in a flurry and floated on the water surface as if satiated. Shui Yanqing is a powerful minister. Shui Ziaozuo played an indispensable role in supporting the heir apparent and auditing the field taxes. He did not covet, snatch, or seize lands by force, but he was a powerful minister. The wise emperors of this world did not fear powerful ministers, but they most certainly feared powerful ministers who had no desires and made no demands. If Shui Yanqing is willing to make an effort here, then he ought to give the heir apparent a chance to get a handle on him, Shenzequan said. Even if he has to fabricate it out of nothing, he has to give the heir apparent that peace of mind. The lack of leverage meant that he was not an easy one to control. In addition, there was no way for checks and balances. Yao Wenyu pondered over it. That's the way Shui Ziaozuo is. He won't leave something behind for the heir apparent to control him with. Shenzequan said meaningfully, then he's in danger. The line between the loyal and the treacherous was sometimes blurred, and the decision-making power lay in Li Jianting's hands. Shenzequan figured out what happened during the Hanqi festival from Ge Qingqing's report, and the facts proved that the heir apparent was not a mere vase that Shui Ziaozuo shifted over. She was like a thorn that had taken root on the throne and was now rapidly growing there with perseverance that far surpassed others. Since Han Cheng is dead, there's no point in keeping Han Jin. Shenzequan seemed to have just remembered this person. He said to Fei Shen behind him, "Open Han Jin's cage and let him go. Send him back to Wu City." Fei Shen thought Shenzequan would retain Han Jin. He never expected Shenzequan to cast Han Jin away just like this. He found it a pity, but he did not dare to speak out of turn. Great Zhou is in shambles. It remains to be seen exactly how many heroes the Son of Heaven can command. Yao Wenyu turned his wheelchair. The heir apparent will not get into an internal conflict with Shui Ziaozuo at this time. Moreover, what's pressing now is the Bianjun Commandery. Commander-in-Chief Qi is going to storm and seize the Qingsha tribe's territory in the 5th month. The Qiang tribe will no longer dare to stand by and watch it go down. I fear it will be another intense battle when the time comes. Qidong has ample military provisions. Qizuyan is not afraid, Shenzequan said. But Zongbo will not feed men of no worth. Harigu has been resting for nearly half a year. It's time to let him out for a walk. Yao Wenyu understood his intention. Is your lordship meaning to send Harigu to negotiate with the Qiang tribe? I heard that Amuer is the leader of only 6 tribes. The Qiang tribe has yet to submit and pledge allegiance to him. Shenzequan was still looking at the water surface. The Qingsha tribe's lands all belong to Amuer, and their provisions had all been given to Hassan in the northern battlefields. It's also for the sake of food that the Qiang tribe is being forced to go into battle, and we do not lack food. Amuer split up Great Zhou with the scorpions, and now that Shenzequan had a batch of scorpions in his hands, it was a waste to keep them in his hands. He wanted put Harigu into use. The Qingsha tribe, Qiang tribe, Gedal, and the Huiyan tribe in the north. Shenzequan looked back. Bridging these places together is the New Year gift that I want to send Amuer. What Amuer stole from Zongbo, Shenzequan could not get back anymore, but he could use a different way to make Amuer pay. The line from the territory of the Qingsha tribe to the territory of the Huiyan tribe just so happened to obstruct the riverbanks of the Hashi River. Duan province doesn't have a wall of defense thick enough. The tassel on Shenzequan's fingertips swayed slightly. And coincidentally, so does the Qiang tribe. End chapter. Note, Hour of Zhou is 1-3. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 241, A Fine Woman. Now that the rain in Chu capital had come to a stop, it was time for Qizuyan to make her journey back home. She received Hua Xianji at the entrance of the palace. The carriage was right by the side, but she secured Ziju on her and said to Hua Xiangji, "Let's go for a walk." Hua Xiangji noted that Qizuyan's broken Wuzhu hairpin still had a golden thread dangling in her hair, as though this was how it should have been. The commander-in-chief did not cut a sorry figure at all. That was, if one could overlook her bruised face. Qi Wei raised a hand to gesture for the carriage to follow behind him. It was only after Qizuyan and Hua Xiangji had walked some distance ahead that he followed along. A warm breeze was presently drifting through the marketplace, where the crowd bustled amidst air reeking with a blend of sweat and deep-fried food. Spring flowers in full bloom a distance away seemed to be coated in a layer of grease, making Qizuyan feel stifled. As they passed by the sugar figurine stall, Qizuyan asked Hua Xiangji, "Want one?" Next to this stall was a path where people and carriage came and went, sending clouds of dust flying all over. Hua Xiangji was the favorite daughter of the Hua clan. Before her arrival in Chu capital, she rarely ventured outdoors, instead staying in her courtyard to live a sheltered, pampered life. She looked at Qizuyan, who fished out her remaining copper coins from her sleeve pocket and flicked them lightly before her. In the ensuing buzz, Qizuyan said with satisfaction, "I have money." This street was not bright enough, but as Qizuyan pulled the corners of her bruised lips to flash a smile, the lanterns behind her instantaneously lit up in successive order. She was like a young maiden of 18 or 19 of age who had run away from home to play, with nothing on her mind except this candy. Clutching her handkerchief, Hua Xiangji lifted a finger and pointed to one of them. "I'd like this one." She felt bashful over her words, and that subtle emotion lay concealed between her eyebrows. This was something she had never done before, and it was also something she would never have done before. Qizuyan tossed the copper coins to the vendor and gave the sugar figurine to Hua Xiangji. She did not care if she had no money. She never had money before, anyway. Money never remained for long in her hands. Hua Xiangji carefully held the sugar figurine with her fingertips and kept her composure as she scrutinized it by the light. She had once caught a glimpse of a sugar figurine past her attendants in the brief flicker of a moment through the gap of her sedan's screen when it fluttered. There were candies in the palace, and the Empress Dowager used to ask Madame Liu Xiang to keep them on hand for her from time to time. Qizuyan rubbed the bruise on her face with the pad of her finger and turned sideways to survey her reflection in the water crock through several overlapping shadows. Qizuyan was a descendant of a noble family, but Hua Xiangji always felt that she did not look the part. She was so sanguine and broad-minded that she resembled a wandering traveler. Hua Xiangji had been in Qidong for half a year, and she had never seen Qizuyan fly into a rage. It was as if there was nothing worth for Qizuyan get angry over about. "Does Commander-in-Chief Qi come here often?" Hua Xiangji asked. "All the ones who dare to play loan sharks in Chu capital are here. Whenever I come here, chances are that it's to borrow money." As Qizuyan spoke, she removed the hairpin in her hair and said a little regretfully, "That was a hairpin was bestowed upon me by the imperial court. All this while, I never dared to sell it. Had I known that it would end up getting broken in the palace, I would have sold it." Hua Xiangji said, "The manners at home." Qizuyan did not wait for Hua Xiangji to finish her words. "Just what I wanted to tell you today. The family manors and shops will all be handed over to you to take care of in the future. You'll decide whether to rent them out or sell them away." She turned around in all seriousness to face Hua Xiangji. "Let's speak our mind here." Qizuyan did not move the conversation to the tea house. She loved the downtown streets and the marketplace. By standing here, she was making her stance known. She was not afraid to face up to anyone's scrutiny. "I have to thank you for the matter regarding the 8 cities' granaries." Qizuyan bowed slightly to her, her long hair spreading behind her. She straightened up again. Or it would have been perilous this time. Hua Xiangji turned to the side, not accepting the bow. "The credit goes to Chenzi." Qizuyan looked at her. "Pan Lin was not the one who told me, so I'll only thank you." At Qi Ziyuan's gaze, Hua Xianji gripped at the sugar figurine until it nearly melted. But I shall be blunt, too. Did you tell me about the 8 cities granaries because you wanted me to do something for you? Qi Ziyuan was straight and direct to the point, totally forgetting all about tact. This third young Miss Hua was a rather strange one, too. Qi Ziyuan spent sleepless nights tossing and turning but could not figure out why Hua Xianji would reveal the matter about the granaries to her. Had it not been for her reminder in the palace, the outcome of this game would still be an unknown. Hua Xianji bent her fair neck to look at the sugar figurine amidst the babble of voices. Commander-in-Chief Qi needs not do anything for me. Just fight against the Biancha. Qi Ziyuan gazed fixedly at Hua Xianji. All of a sudden, she propped herself on her knees and tilted her head to look at Hua Xianji's expression. Is that all? She asked in puzzlement. Qi Ziyuan gave Hua Xianji a fright. This posture was just like the last time Qi Ziyuan lifted her veil, when she had simply charged before her without giving Hua Xianji the chance to compose herself. You helped Yao when you escaped from Chu capital. Qi Ziyuan looked as if she had just woken up from her sleep. She found Hua Xianji pleasant smelling, with a hint of flower fragrance like she expected. But when her wandering mind snapped back to reality, she realized that Hua Xianji was still holding the sugar figurine, waiting with composure and rapt attention for her to continue. And told me about the granaries. Qi Ziyuan covered up the fact that her mind was wandering earlier. Was that because you married my father? Hua Xianji answered, Chenzi was the one who saved you and Zhou. Qi Ziyuan shook her head and said with certainty. It was you. Hua Xianji pushed the credits to the others on these occasions, as if she could not admit to it. The boundary line that hindered her was the Empress Dowager's love and affection. The last of the sunset glow of the street was swallowed up, and the lanterns shone so bright that they looked like falling stars. Meanwhile, the smell of deep frying dissipated a little, although the marketplace was still hot and stuffy. Hua Xianji looked out of place here. Back during the reign of Xiand, my paternal aunt would set questions for me from time to time, most frequently during the spring plowing season every year. Hua Xianji lowered the sugar figurine as if twiddling with the shadows of the past. In truth, they were all accounts of the 8 cities. The more I calculated, the clearer it became to me. I once advised my aunt during the reign of Xian to let Zhang Qingshan go over, but they thought it was enough for Zhang Qingshan to oversee the 13 cities. That year, people dying of starvation became a common sight in Zhongbo. In the years that followed, the 6 prefectures took a further beating from the grains transferred from the 8 cities. Too many people died. She lifted her head gently. So much more than when the Biancha massacred the cities. Hua Xianji lived deep within the palace. She donned exquisite silks, feasted on delicacies, slumbered on satin, while those on the other end of the vermilion walls were dressed in rags, sold their children for food, and slept in the bitter cold. She stood with the Empress Dowager on the western tower and looked out into the distance. The illusion of prosperity and glory blinded her eyes, but very quickly, she realized that these people had never even thought of stopping. Hai Lianji killed himself in Mingli Hall, and yet the Empress Dowager never thought to change her ways. I want my aunt to stop, Hua Xianji said. The people were the rivers bearing the weight of boats, this was the foundation. Yet the Empress Dowager still wanted to count on the 8 great training divisions to suppress the rumors, that was defying the laws of nature. The rise and fall of the empire did not lay on the sovereign at all. The world needed only an emperor with the heart that knew to show compassion for all the hardships in this world. I'm confined to my courtyard and my abilities are limited. Compared to Yuan Zhou or Chenzi, what I can do is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Hua Xianji slowly returned a bow to Qi Ziyuan when she spoke to this point. Commander-in-Chief Qi traverses Qidong and gallops the battlefield. If you can repel the 12 tribes of Biancha, that'd be a great service to our countrymen. And for that reason, I want Commander-in-Chief Qi to walk out of the Chu capital alive. Qiang received this bow, looking as if she had just recognized who Huazionji really was. You are a fine woman. Qiang paused for a moment. And I shall repay you with military accomplishments on the battlefield. End chapter.